What happens when a prince loses his cool on live television? In just 47 seconds, Prince Harry went from smiling guest to furious royal, exploding at Stephen Colbert in a meltdown that ended with security being called and cameras still rolling. A simple question about his family turned into the most dramatic exit in late-night television history, with accusations flying, voices raised, and one very angry prince storming off the stage. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing the royal family's darkest scandals, the secrets they don't want you to know, and the drama they try to hide from the world. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. Last night's episode of The Late Show started like any other appearance. Prince Harry walked out to applause, waving to the audience with that familiar smile. He sat down across from Stephen Colbert, looking relaxed in his casual jacket and open-collar shirt. The audience was excited, cheering loudly as Colbert welcomed him to the show. Everything seemed perfectly fine on the surface. Colbert opened with some light jokes about Harry living in California, asking him about the weather and how he was adjusting to American life. Harry laughed along, making comments about enjoying the sunshine and freedom. The audience chuckled. It all felt comfortable and easy, just two people having a friendly chat under the bright studio lights. Then Colbert started asking about Harry's children. He wanted to know how they were growing up, what they were learning, whether they understood their unique position in the world. Harry's answers became shorter. His smile looked more forced. He shifted in his seat, crossing and uncrossing his legs. Something was changing in his body language, but Colbert kept pushing forward with his questions. "Your kids are being raised so differently from how you were raised," Colbert said, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. "Do you think that's better for them? Do you ever worry they're missing out on something by not being in England?" Harry's jaw tightened. "They're not missing out on anything," he said, his voice suddenly harder. "They're happy, they're safe, and that's what matters." The audience picked up on the tension. The laughter died down. People started glancing at each other, sensing something uncomfortable brewing. Colbert, being the experienced host he is, tried to lighten the mood with a joke about American versus British parenting styles. But Harry didn't laugh. He just stared at Colbert with an expression that wasn't friendly anymore. "Let's talk about your father," Colbert continued, flipping to his next note card. "King Charles has been on the throne for a while now. Have you two spoken recently? Have things improved between you?" That question landed like a bomb. Harry's face went red almost immediately. "Why does everyone always want to talk about that?" he snapped. "Why is that anyone's business?" Colbert raised his eyebrows, clearly surprised by the sudden hostility. "Well, you've written about it extensively in your book. You've talked about it in interviews. I think people are curious about whether—" "Curious?" Harry interrupted, his voice rising. "Or are they just waiting for more drama? More headlines? More things to twist and turn into stories that aren't true?" The studio went completely silent. You could hear the cameras still running, capturing every uncomfortable second. The audience didn't know whether to react or stay quiet. Colbert sat back in his chair, his comedy persona dropping for a moment as he tried to figure out how to handle this. "I'm just asking questions based on what you've shared publicly," Colbert said calmly, trying to bring things back under control. "You've been very open about your struggles with your family. I thought that meant it was okay to discuss." "Open?" Harry said, almost laughing but not in a happy way. "I've been honest. There's a difference. I've told the truth about what happened to me, what was done to me and my wife, but that doesn't mean I want to sit here and be interrogated like I'm the problem." Colbert's face showed confusion. "I don't think anyone's saying you're the problem, Harry. I'm just trying to understand." "Understand what?" Harry cut him off again, leaning forward aggressively. "You want to understand why I left? Why I chose my wife and children over people who treated us like garbage? Is that what you want me to explain again?" The audience was frozen. Some people looked uncomfortable, others looked shocked. This was not the fun, light-hearted interview anyone expected. Colbert glanced at his producers off stage, probably wondering if they should cut to commercial. But the cameras kept rolling. "I think you're misunderstanding my questions," Colbert said carefully. "I have a lot of respect for the choices you've made. I'm just asking if there's been any progress in healing those relationships. That's not an attack." Harry shook his head, his anger clearly building. "You know what? Everyone says they respect my choices, but then they keep asking the same questions. They keep pushing for me to say something that makes my family look bad, or makes me look crazy, or gives them another headline. I'm tired of it. That's not what I'm doing, Colbert insisted, his own frustration starting to show. You came on this show knowing we'd talk about your life. That's literally what talk shows do. We talk. Yeah. Well, maybe I made a mistake coming here, Harry shot back. Maybe I should have known better than to think I could have an actual conversation without being put on trial. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Colbert took a deep breath, clearly trying to stay professional. Harry, nobody's putting you on trial. But you can't come on television, write books about your family, do interview after interview, and then get upset when people ask follow-up questions. That's not how this works. Those words hit something in Harry. His face went from red to almost purple. Not how this works, he repeated, his voice getting louder. You have no idea how this works. You have no idea what it's like to have your entire life picked apart, to have every word you say twisted, to watch people lie about you and your wife every single day. You're right. I don't know what that's like, Colbert said, his voice remaining steady. But I do know that you've chosen to speak publicly about these issues. You can't have it both ways. You can't tell your story and then get angry when people want to discuss it. Harry stood up suddenly, his microphone making a loud rustling sound. The audience gasped. I'm not doing this, he said firmly. I'm not sitting here listening to you tell me what I can and can't be upset about. Colbert looked genuinely surprised now. Harry, sit down. Let's just take a breath and... Don't tell me to sit down, Harry's voice echoed through the studio. I'm not a child. I'm not someone you can just lecture like I don't know what I'm doing. The producers were definitely panicking off stage now. You could see crew members moving around, unsure whether to intervene. Colbert stood up too, trying to maintain some control over the situation that was rapidly spiraling. Nobody's lecturing you, Colbert said, his patience clearly wearing thin. But if you're going to act like this every time someone asks you a reasonable question, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all. That was the point of no return. Harry's eyes went wide with rage. Act like this? Act like this? He was shouting now, properly shouting. How am I supposed to act when everyone treats me like I'm the villain? When they defend the people who made my life hell and question everything I do? I'm not defending anyone. Colbert raised his voice for the first time. I asked you a simple question about whether you'd talk to your father. That's it. And you turned it into this whole thing. Because it's never just a simple question, Harry yelled back. It's always loaded. It's always designed to make me look bad or make them look innocent. I'm sick of it. The audience was completely silent now, watching this argument unfold like they were witnessing a car crash. Some people had their hands over their mouths. Others were filming on their phones, despite the studio rules against it. Colbert ran his hand through his hair, clearly at the end of his rope. You know what, Harry? I tried to give you a fair interview. I tried to be respectful, but you came out here with a chip on your shoulder, looking for a fight. And honestly, that's on you. Harry pointed his finger at Colbert, his hand shaking with anger. Don't you dare put this on me. You and every other talk show host do the same thing. You pretend to be supportive, and then you ask questions that you know will cause problems. That's ridiculous, Colbert said flatly. You're being paranoid. The word paranoid was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Harry's face contorted with fury. Paranoid? Paranoid? After everything my family has been through, after what happened to my mother, after watching them destroy my wife's mental health, you're calling me paranoid? I'm saying you're seeing attacks where there aren't any, Colbert clarified, but his tone was sharp now. I asked about your relationship with your father. That's a normal question for someone in your position. The fact that you can't handle that without exploding says more about you than it does about me. Screw you, Harry said, and the audience gasped at the profanity. Screw you and your high horse. You sit here every night making jokes about politicians and celebrities, acting all superior, but you're just another person trying to get ratings off my pain. Colbert's face hardened. That's completely unfair. I've never exploited your pain. But you know who has talked extensively about their pain? You. You've made it your brand. You've built your entire post-royal life on talking about how badly you were treated. So forgive me for thinking it was okay to discuss the very things you won't shut up about." The studio erupted in shocked murmurs. That was harsh, even by late-night standards. Harry looked like he'd been slapped. For a second, he just stood there, speechless, his chest heaving with angry breaths. "That's what you really think?" Harry finally said, his voice shaking. "That I won't shut up? That I'm using my trauma for attention?" "I think you want sympathy without questions," Colbert replied, not backing down. "I think you want everyone to agree with your version of events, without examining anything critically. And when someone does ask a critical question, you lose it." Harry ripped his microphone off and threw it on the chair. "I'm done. I'm absolutely done with this." "Yeah, I think we're all done with this," Colbert said coldly. "This interview is over. You can't end it. I'm leaving," Harry shouted, even though Colbert had just said it was over. The logic didn't matter anymore. The anger had taken over completely. "Fine, leave," Colbert shouted back. "But don't come back here complaining when people talk about how you stormed off a talk show because you couldn't handle basic questions." Harry's face was almost purple now. "You don't know anything about me. Nothing. You just read headlines and think you understand my life." "I know you came on my show and acted like a spoiled brat," Colbert fired back, and the audience gasped again. "I know you turned a simple conversation into a screaming match because your ego couldn't handle anything less than complete agreement." "Spoiled brat?" Harry was shaking with rage. "Spoiled brat? I gave up everything. My family, my country, my title, everything. And people like you still act like I'm the bad guy." "Nobody said you're the bad guy," Colbert yelled, his professional composure completely gone now. "But you're sure as hell acting like one right now. You're proving every criticism people have about you being entitled and unable to take any accountability." That word, entitled, sent Harry over the edge. He grabbed the glass of water from the desk, and for a terrifying second, it looked like he might throw it. Instead, he slammed it back down, water sloshing everywhere, some of it splashing onto Colbert's note cards. "I'm entitled?" Harry's voice cracked with fury. "I'm entitled for wanting to protect my family? For wanting privacy? For wanting to be treated like a human being? You're entitled for thinking you can trash your family publicly and then get mad when people ask about it," Colbert shot back. "You're entitled for thinking the rules don't apply to you. You want to be left alone? Then actually leave people alone. Stop doing interviews. Stop writing books. Stop coming on shows like this if you can't handle the conversation." Harry looked around wildly, like he was looking for something else to break or someone to support him. The audience just stared. His security team started moving closer to the stage, sensing things were completely out of control. "This is bullshit," Harry said, his voice hoarse from yelling. "Complete bullshit. I thought you were different. I thought maybe you'd actually listen instead of attacking me." "I did listen." Colbert's voice boomed through the studio. "I listened for years. Everyone's listened. The whole world has listened to you. But listening doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It doesn't mean we can't question anything. You're not a victim here, Harry. You're a grown man having a meltdown because someone challenged you." "Don't you dare tell me I'm not a victim," Harry said, his voice dropping to something dangerous and low. "You have no idea what was done to me, what they put me through, what I lost." "Then why do you keep reliving it?" Colbert asked, suddenly quieter too, but no less intense. "Why do you keep putting yourself through these interviews if it hurts so much? Why can't you just live your life and be happy?" "Because they won't let me," Harry exploded again. "Because no matter what I do, people like you keep dragging it all back up. Keep asking questions, keep judging me. Because you keep giving us material," Colbert countered. "You can't release a memoir and then act shocked when people want to discuss it. You can't do a documentary series and then claim invasion of privacy. Pick a lane, Harry." Harry's hands were clenched into fists at his sides. "I've picked my lane. I chose my wife and my kids. But you all keep trying to drag me back into the drama." "By asking if you've talked to your father?" Colbert said incredulously. "That's dragging you into drama? That's a normal family question. But you can't answer it normally. Because you've convinced yourself that everyone's out to get you." "They are out to get me," Harry screamed, completely losing it. "The media, the palace, people like you who pretend to be friendly, you're all the same." "I'm not the same," Colbert yelled back. "I'm not the British tabloids. I'm not your family. I'm a talk show host who invited you on and tried to have a conversation. And you've turned it into this disaster. Harry's security team was on the stage now, standing nearby but not touching him, clearly unsure how to handle a prince having a public breakdown. One of them said something quiet to Harry, probably suggesting they leave. "Get away from me!" Harry snapped at his own security. Then he turned back to Colbert, pointing at him again. "You want to know the truth? You want to know why I react like this? Because I'm tired. I'm tired of explaining myself. I'm tired of defending my choices. I'm tired of people who don't know anything about my life acting like experts." "Then stop explaining," Colbert said, exasperated. "Just stop. Live your life and stop seeking validation from people you claim to hate. Stop doing interviews if they make you this upset." "Maybe I will," Harry shouted. "Maybe this is the last one. Maybe I'm done with all of you." "Good," Colbert shouted back. "Because this has been a disaster. An absolute disaster. I've never had a guest completely lose their mind like this." "That's because you've never had a guest who's been through what I've been through." Harry's voice was getting hoarse from all the yelling. "Oh my God," Colbert said, putting his hands on his head. "You're not the only person in the world who's had a difficult life. You're not the only one with family problems, but you're the only one who's made an entire career out of complaining about it while simultaneously claiming you want privacy." That seemed to break something in Harry. He went very quiet, very still. When he spoke again, his voice was cold and controlled. "I'm leaving. I already told you the interview's over," Colbert said tiredly. "No, I mean I'm leaving this studio before I say something I really regret," Harry said. His jaw clenched so tight you could see the muscles working. "Because unlike you, I actually care about consequences." "Consequences?" Colbert laughed bitterly. "Harry, you just had a screaming match on live television. The consequences are already here." Harry didn't respond. He just started walking toward the exit, his security team following close behind. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay silent. Most chose silence. "That's right, walk away," Colbert called after him. "Just like you walked away from everything else when it got too hard." Harry spun around so fast his security actually jumped. For a second, it looked like he might charge back onto the stage. "You don't know anything about why I left," he screamed across the studio. "You don't know what they did, what they said, how they treated my wife." "Then tell me," Colbert shouted back. "Have an actual conversation instead of a tantrum. Explain it like an adult instead of yelling and throwing things." "I've explained it 100 times," Harry's voice echoed off the walls. "In my book, in interviews, in the documentary. If you still don't understand, that's on you." "Maybe the problem is your explanation," Colbert fired back. "Maybe the problem is that you see yourself as this perfect victim and everyone else as villains. Maybe real life is more complicated than your narrative." Harry's face went through several emotions: rage, hurt, disbelief, more rage. "I'm not doing this anymore," he said finally. "This is exactly why I left that whole world behind. People like you. People who think they know everything. Who judge without understanding." "I'm not judging you for leaving," Colbert said, his voice still raised but less screaming now. "I'm judging you for how you've handled everything since, for the constant need to be seen as right, for the inability to admit that maybe, just maybe, you've made mistakes too." "Of course I've made mistakes," Harry yelled. "I've never said I was perfect, but my mistakes don't compare to what was done to me." "And there it is," Colbert said, almost sadly. "That's always your answer. Deflection. Everything bad is someone else's fault. You take no responsibility for any of it." Harry shook his head, looking disgusted. "You're twisting everything, just like they all do." "I'm not twisting anything," Colbert said firmly. "I'm calling you out. Someone needs to." The two men stared at each other across the studio, both breathing hard, both clearly furious. The audience was dead silent, barely breathing themselves. This had gone so far beyond a normal interview that nobody knew how it would end. "You know what?" Harry said quietly, but the microphone still picked it up. "I hope you're happy. I hope you got the ratings you wanted. I hope this clip goes viral and makes you money. Because that's all any of you care about." "That is so unfair," Colbert said, shaking his head. "I invited you here in good faith. I prepared thoughtful questions, and you came out looking for a fight from minute one. This isn't on me, Harry. This is all you." Harry let out a laugh that sounded more like a bark. Sure. Blame the guest. That's convenient. I'm not blaming you for being upset, Colbert tried to clarify. I'm blaming you for how you expressed it. For attacking me when I was just doing my job. For turning my show into your therapy session gone wrong. Therapy session? Harry looked outraged all over again. You think this is therapy? This is harassment. This is exactly what I've been trying to escape. Harassment? Colbert threw his hands up. I asked you questions. That's literally what this show is. You knew that coming in. Don't act like you were ambushed. I was ambushed by your attitude. Harry shot back. By your judgment. By your complete lack of understanding. One of the producers finally got brave enough to approach the stage, probably to suggest they really needed to end this. Colbert held up a hand, stopping them. Harry, Colbert said, his voice getting very serious. You need to leave now. This interview is over, this show is over, and you need to go. I told you I was leaving 5 minutes ago, Harry shouted. You're the one who kept going. Because you kept responding, Colbert shouted back. They stared at each other again, both realizing how ridiculous this had become. Harry's security team gently touched his arm, trying to guide him away. Fine, Harry said through gritted teeth. I'm going, but I want everyone watching to know that this, he gestured wildly at the stage, this is exactly what I've been talking about. This is the disrespect. This is the judgment. This is why I left. No, Harry, Colbert said tiredly. This is what happens when you can't handle a conversation that doesn't go exactly how you want it. This is what happens when you confuse questions with attacks. This is all you. Harry's face flushed red again. Screw you, Stephen. Screw you and your show. Get out, Colbert said coldly. Just get out. Harry turned and started walking toward the exit again. This time he didn't stop. His security surrounded him, creating a barrier between him and the cameras that were still following his every move. The audience watched in stunned silence as a Prince of England, red-faced and furious, stormed off the set of The Late Show. Just before he reached the exit, Harry turned back one last time. You'll regret this, he yelled. All of you will regret how you've treated me. The only one with regrets tonight is you, Colbert called back. And probably me for booking you. Harry said something else, but it was too muffled by the distance and his security team to make out clearly. It didn't sound friendly. Then he was gone, disappeared through the exit with his team, leaving behind a studio full of shocked audience members, a furious host, and several cameras that had captured every single second of the most explosive talk show disaster in recent memory. Colbert stood there on the stage, looking at the exit, then at his ruined note cards with water still dripping off them, then at the audience, who didn't know whether to clap or cry or just leave. He ran his hand through his hair and let out a long breath. Well, he said to the audience, his voice hoarse from all the yelling. That happened. The audience gave a nervous laugh, the tension finally breaking just slightly. But everyone knew they'd just witnessed something that would be talked about for a very long time. The prince's dramatic exit was complete, and there was no coming back from it.